I'm Lee Hopwood, CEO here at the CCMA and your host for the next hour, where we're going to be helping you show the boardroom the strategic value of your contact centre. Now, the theme at the UK National Contact Centre Conference back in October was exactly this, that the contact center holds immense strategic value, from how we are leading the way in having the most diverse workforce to the insights that are gathered every second from the customers that your teams are talking to. And it's this that I want to explore today, this data, this insights, this critical information that can be used by marketing, by product development, by finance, by the policymakers, by compliance, by so many other functions in business to deliver better products and services that can provide a better all-round customer experience. Of course, fundamentally creating a sustainable business, one that continues to innovate and adapt to changing customer demands, because you know what those customer demands are. And then the business knows what customers want. So with AI now putting data and analytics on steroids, the big question is, how mature is the contact center in accessing and analyzing the data available and using those insights to get a seat at the corporate decision-making table? Now, joining me shortly to discuss this a little bit further is the Executive Director of Global Customer Care Operations at Estee Lauder, Tracy Calloway. We've got TUI's Head of Continuous Service Improvement, Quentin Botner, and from Simply Health, their Digital Service Manager, Amy Elliott. And of course, as always, please feel free to share your views in the chat, your questions in the Q&A, and I will put them to your panel. I have them here open on screen for me to have a look at what you guys share. But first, I want to talk to an analytics and AI expert, Bart Lehane. Please join me on screen, Bart. Now, Bart has a PhD in AI and machine learning. For the past 20 years, he has focused on applying this latest technology to solve real-world problems. Hi, Bart. How are you doing?
I'm doing well today. Thanks for having me on.
Fab. So I understand that about 9 years ago, you started working with customer support data and you saw the huge potential for this to be used to drive real change in the wider organization. And that was when you set up EdgeTier, and you build technology that really enables contact centers to mine that data so that those that are listening have complete visibility of all the customer interactions. And I know you've got loads of experience under your belt, talking to folk that are going to be listening, and also folk in the AI space. So welcome, Bart. Let me start by asking you, what data assets are in the contact center that could be of real value to the rest of the business?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the support team is probably the most data-rich organization in the business. They're probably the department with the most information that can be used elsewhere. So, in addition to the metrics we all know and love, the handling times, the queue times, all those kind of things, there's such a rich set of conversational data, thousands of calls that are happening every day, thousands of emails, chats, surveys, all those things are really, really rich in kind of insights and understanding if we can get kind of data out of them. So the data, my background, as you mentioned, is kind of data science. So, when I first started working with customer support data all those years ago, I remember being like really almost giddy with excitement, seeing all of this data, all this really interesting stuff going on. And then you'd speak to like a head of customer support, you'd be like, are you sure the only thing you want to find out from all this data is like what are your handling times and how long the queue is on a Tuesday morning? So there's a huge amount of potential there to get that data out. And the way we kind of view it is, if the CEO of your company could listen to every single phone call that was going on and read every email that your customer sent in, they would be in an unbelievable position to make really good strategic decisions about products, about marketing, about processes within the business. And that's one of the reasons why we made EdgeTier, is to give that view of what customers are talking about, what's going on from that data out to the rest of the business.
Do you know what? And that is so key. If the CEO knew what we had access to in the contact center, so key. So how do most organizations access this data today from your experience? What have you seen?
Yeah, and one of the nice things about my role is that I get to work with lots of different companies, some of whom are on the panel today, thankfully, but really get a feel for their attitude towards data and the kind of culture in the company around how they use data. And at the really basic level, there's companies on there's not too many of them really anymore, but there are companies out there where just data is just not a priority. So like using data, using information, it's just not a priority, right? But then kind of above that, you tend to have, organizations where there's either like a push from the support team, which is really common, where the support team are aware of problems and they know there's problems out there and they're trying to push that insight or that point of view to the rest of the business, but they're really struggling to make the point well. So when they try to go to the business and say, this is a problem, we know it's a problem, they always get pushback because it's, well, how big of a problem is it? How many people is it affecting? Who are those people? And it's really hard to kind of build a case around it. And then sometimes you have the opposite culture where the business feels they should be getting more out of the data, but they ask the support team and it's a real chore to try and get that data out. So the business is trying to pull the support team to get data from them, but they're really struggling because again, they don't have the kind of equipment. And then at the kind of higher, sorry, Lee, at the higher
No, go
level, it's
on.
then where there's that kind of collaboration and where the support team has that like seat at the decision-making table where they are feeding insights to the business and the business is asking them, and there's this kind of really tight collaboration that's happening.
And I guess that is a bit of a maturity curve that that organizations could be on. And I'm going to be asking our listeners in a moment some questions around
Yeah.
that. But first of all, your background is very much in the AI space. How is AI really transforming this asset? Now, arguably, AI is being used for a while.
Hmm.
AI is not a new technology, generative
Yeah.
AI is. But how are we now using AI differently to really transform what we've got available in the contact center?
Yeah, and look, AI clearly has lots of uses, right? It's evolving all the time, right? Clearly, like bots have a role. We're probably not going to focus too much on bots today, but clearly bots have a role, and AI can help make them better. But it would be a bit of a wasted opportunity if the only thing we use this kind of advances in AI for is just more kind of and better bots, right? So when I spoke earlier on about kind of metrics and reporting, like years ago, it made sense to just report on metrics because that's really all you could do, right? So it was hard to get insights from the data because, well, you just couldn't do it, right? Computers couldn't really understand language, right, in the way that they can now, right? I say understands, right? They don't really understand, but they give the impression that they do. But AI makes this a lot more possible, right? So AI really gives you that window into what's going on in your conversation. So answering a question like, show me any time when a customer sounded confused in the last 2 weeks and split that by product or by agent or by topic, that's like a 30-second job now that you can just get that out. So you get to the kind of why a lot quicker, which allows you to make those changes and improve things. It can also be a lot more proactive as well. So AI can do things like monitor your conversations and tell you when people are talking about some unusual topic or, there's a 404 error on the website that people are talking about in the last kind of few minutes. And it can be that kind of proactive assistant as well. So really overall, what it's allowing you to do is kind of open that window into those customer conversations and allow you be that kind of proactive kind of driver of change.
Fascinating. And I just want to just let everybody know that this is not going to be a conversation about AI. It is all about AI comes into everything at the moment, and I
Yeah.
completely get that. But I think it's time to go to a poll and find out where you guys that are listening in, where are you on this maturity curve? So if we can see the first question, please. How important is the use of data and insights in your organization? So how important is the use of data and insights in your organization? Is it nobody cares about data and you're at that first stage of the maturity curve? Maybe you've got lots of data, but you don't really have those insights. You're not really 100% sure what it's telling you. But maybe the contact center has got insights, but the rest of the business doesn't care. So you're using it, you're making some nice changes within the contact center. Or maybe you've got the contact center is the insights hub for the rest of the business. So people do know that you have got all of this brilliant insights and you are using it, maybe a little bit sporadically, but at least people know that you've got some value with the insights that you have. Or maybe it's that last one, contact center insights used to make business change. You are absolutely embedded in the organization, and what you're finding out through the contact center is being used to make business change. I think I've waffled on long enough explaining those 5 different points. So let's see what the results tell us. Where are we on that curve? So I am so pleased to hear that nobody cares about data has got absolutely no votes whatsoever. I'm so pleased about that. Interesting, lots of data, but no insights, and I guess that's the learning curve that we're all on at the moment. The next one is actually that the contact center is the insights hub for the rest of the business. I'm loving the fact that the rest of the business is aware of what we've got, and it's starting to make some real change, which is absolutely brilliant. Comment just come in. Thank you, Alison. The business does care, but just doesn't prioritize the extraction. I think that's a very interesting comment. Bart, what's your views on that?
Yeah, not I wouldn't say hugely surprising. Definitely what we would see when we talk to talk to lots of companies. You know, everybody's at a different stage in their journey, right? And I guess it's really about how you kind of can move to the next stage. And for some companies, it's like you almost have to drive a bit of a cultural shift, and you have to maybe show rather than explain. So you have to kind of show some insight, and then then the rest of the business will kind of catch up. In other cases, it's more that there's a degree of like desire to get this data out, and it's a case of fueling that and feeding that so that you're always part of the discussion. So yeah, very consistent with what we would see. And an interesting comment from Alison on the chat there, that sometimes the business does care about the data, but doesn't prioritize the extraction of the data. And that's the classic, the resorting, or what people resort to doing then is, well, let's pull a few team members off answering calls and let's get them looking through conversations, which is obviously a big kind of time suck.
Yeah, it totally is. I want to go to another question. We've got 3 questions, by the way, if you're wondering how many questions we're going to be asking you. We've got 3 questions. So the next one is, how easy is it to access the data in your contact center and view it as insights? So remembering that second point a moment ago, got loads of data, but no real insights. How easy is it to access that data in your contact center and view it as insights? And we kind of anticipated that you might have lots of data. Almost impossible, and you just end up giving up. Okay, but it takes a lot of hours just to get to that raw data. Maybe you've got easy access to the data, but it needs quite a lot of manipulating and time to do that. And maybe it's just really easy to access. You're analyzing it, and you can do all of your slicing and dicing and all of those other words that you use to actually find out what that data is telling you. Let's have a look at those results. Easy access to the data, but it needs manipulating. That doesn't surprise me. Bart, does that surprise you?
Not hugely. It's great to see that the data is there, right? It shows a level of maturity that most companies are investing in the ability to at least have this data. But yeah, it's a classic problem that you then need to do something with it. And it's typically pretty difficult to get budget for data scientists or analysts to kind of do this for you. So you're probably relying on a centralized team and things like that, which make it hard. But yeah, very common and very much what we would expect.
And one of the things that I find when we're doing polls like this is that our listeners will be either going, okay, we need to do more because it's almost impossible, and others that will be a little bit more comfort factor of, oh, actually, we're not behind, we're not ahead, we're not behind. Actually, we're in a good place. Let's have a look at our third question. Do you use the insights, no matter how you find them and get them out of your systems, do you use those insights to make change beyond the contact center? So I know that there'll be lots of people that maybe do make some change within the contact center using that data, but what about beyond the contact center? Maybe to product, maybe to other processes that are going on. So no one listens, no one's listening to us, so we can't make any change. No, we don't have appropriate insights. So we might have the data, but actually finding the insights that we can use to make that change elsewhere in the business. No, we don't have the processes or the relationships in place. Sometimes that can be a barrier to making that change. Yes, we've done this once. Maybe you've just done it the once and you're now going through that process of proving that it actually works. Yes, when we can, but not too often. And that might be because of how difficult it is to get the insights. It might be because the relationships are not as strong as you'd like them to be. Yes, and it's starting to have an impact. Maybe the data and insights, you're starting to really see that you're being able to make change across the business. And the last one, yes, it's absolutely in our DNA. Everybody's listening to us and wanting more, and it's all just part of what we do. Let's have a look at those results. Oh, I love that. Oh, I like it when it's interestingly it's split quite nicely. So what have we got? Starting to have an impact. That's really good. Second behind that is whenever we can, but not too often. I love the fact that 13% of folk have said yes, it's in our DNA. Bart, what's your view on what you can see on the screen?
Yeah, again, a pretty mixed bag here, and I think the key, and there's a comment on the chat. I'm not sure if people saw it from Ethan saying, and it almost sums up to me the average of where a lot of people are, which is starting to have an impact, but a lot of time is taken invested in stakeholder management and building relationships and confidence. And to me, like the amount of people that we would see where people know there's a problem and they're really strong, like company people who are motivated to solve the problem, but it feels like they're kind of banging their head against a brick wall sometimes, trying to make everybody else realize that. I think that kind of sums up like a lot of the results of this, where people are on different stages, but that's the key kind of challenge that they need to kind of overcome.
No, I love it. And please, if you do have any experiences, anything you want to say in the chat, please do pop it in the chat. Feel free to share it with everybody as well, not just hosts and panelists. I'm sure that there are some lessons learned along the way that we can share amongst those that are on the call with us today. So let's bring in our panel. Please welcome on screen. We have Tracy, we have Quentin, and we have Amy. And as I say, don't forget to pop any questions in the Q&A. Quentin, yes. Do the responses that we've just seen in the polls resonate with you?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm actually quite pleased to see that for some companies it's actually part of the DNA already, because that's very encouraging. That gives you a good direction to go to. I think one of the conclusions is probably that there is still a lot more work to do to get there, but at least it gives the direction that for some firm it is part of the DNA and we can get there. But maybe to build on this, to say we are, I think, extremely lucky in customer service that we've got access to so many people, and we can get the direct feedback, and we can get information very easily from so many staff on what's going wrong. And then the moment we get a bit better with our data and we pull the two together, that insight is then extremely valuable to anyone in the business. So we've got access to this. But the only feel that I've got when I see this is it is actually our responsibility to make it happen. Like, we can't really expect the rest of the business to know what's going on within the closed door of our contact center. It is actually on us to actually take that to the rest of the business. And yeah, that's where a bit of work still lies.
Yeah, interesting. You don't know what you don't know. And the rest of the business doesn't know what they don't know. So Tracy, why is it so important to share the insights that are available in the contact center with those other business leaders, with those folk that don't know what they don't know?
Hi everyone. Yeah, thanks, Lee. And I think it goes back to something that Bart was saying earlier, actually, but really the contact center is that customer voice, isn't it? It's where your customers connect with your brand. It's where it's like the moment of truth. Quite often, they tell you the good, they tell you the bad, they definitely tell you the ugly. And for me, I think, this is where you can get richer insight than any qualitative or quantitative, research, because you can actually listen to or read customer verbatim comments, so you can hear it in the kind of customer's own words, which is just so powerful, and then ultimately that should be, and it seems as though in a lot of the cases that we've seen from the responses today, drive business decisions, and lots of different types of business decisions as well, not just decisions about where to invest and things like that, but where to improve, etc.
And it is so important. And you're a senior business leader in our industry. You're one of the head judges on the UK National Contact Centre Awards 2025. Thank you for that. How do you use what you know from the contact centre to influence business change? What are you doing? How are you getting that voice of the customer out?
Yeah, in lots of different ways, I think now. I think, one is definitely around highlighting opportunities. And I think this is one of the ones that resonates the most in the boardroom, but, opportunities for growth or revenue, gaps in the market, trends and things like that, because obviously we're a retail business. And, we've got some great examples of where we've been able to share data from the contact centre that's actually meant that products have been brought back or there's been new product development. We actually capture information from customers saying, we love this product, why did you discontinue it? And then we can share that. And as I say, we've got a great example of some bring back of products that we've done there, but also I guess to flag issues as well. So particularly in our business, we do get issues in our supply chain. So again, we've got some great examples where we've actually been able to influence some of the commercial discussions and decisions with some of our carrier partners, because there's been some really rich data from our customers saying where we've got pain points in that supply chain. And then I think as well, really, around, this is the great thing for me, I think that being able to support business cases and get investment for the wider business for, areas that are important to them. And then I guess probably the final area is really around validating changes that the business makes. So, or if we bring out a new product or, we do something, that we're able to actually share back to the business the impact that that's had.
Oh, that's an interesting one. When change has been put forward because of the insights, actually being able to measure those insights, measure the impact of that change, that's really, really valuable. And Quentin, given the fast changing nature of the travel industry that you're in, I mean, retail is moving quick, travel is moving quick. How are you using the insights that you must see all the time that's coming through? And, travel is the changing stuff going on around the world. How are you using the insights to make business change?
Well, actually, it all started with the fact that we take people to more than 70 destinations around the world. And as much as we've got staff everywhere in the world, we've got 60,000 people working at TUI. We don't have process people, and we don't have people who can actually have eyes everywhere. So we're very, very busy operating in all this destination, but actually getting an understanding of what's happening there. Has there been a problem with some of the transfers? Has there been a problem in one of the hotel and stuff like this? We just simply didn't know, because our people there are there to operate and to make sure that everything works smooth, but we didn't have access to that information. So we had to find ways to actually break barriers and to get access to all of this. So that's how it started, to kind of look at contact reason, look at all this insight and try to understand what's happening on the field, where we can't just be all the time there. And I think there is another side to a question, which is, in a competitive environment like travel, we've got the traditional tour operator like we are TUI, and we are evolving and competing on different offering, but we also see the likes of Booking.com and other providers coming to the business, and with very different business model, very, very efficient at creating self-service offering and stuff like this. We can't, as a traditional tour operator, continue to do those things the same way and just keep on adding more people in the contact center every year just because we're catering for our growth. We had to find a way to actually become more sustainable, more, I would say, cost effective. And that's also one of the way to offset the growth, is to look at what the problem and trying to avoid piling people on top. So that's our approach.
And that's fascinating, because like you say, if you've got if you've got a competitor coming into the market, or someone that is doing something differently, then it's through the contact center that you may well hear about it first. And especially in the world of disruption, where we know that there are organizations that are disrupting markets, the contact center is going to hear it first. And one of the things, Quentin, that I'm aware that you guys have done at TUI is you've seen a move from being a cost center to a value center because of your use of data and insights. Is that right?
Yeah, well, we try at least. But if we look back at where we started like 2 years ago with continuous improvement, we just decided to go and ask our staff what was going on, what was stopping them to actually provide the best customer experience. And the value of the feedback was enormous, because they really told us the truth. They told us all the things that were not going well in our journeys. But one of the things that was very important at the time was payment. So we heard whispers in the corridor, payment system is crap, and it doesn't work, and it always leads to problems and stuff. we've escalated, no one ever listened and stuff. So we decided to actually look at the insight or the data related to that, and realized that 20 to 25% of our contact related to payments. So we're like, that's a transactional thing. Like, it should not be that complex to actually either pay your holiday or do an amendment and stuff like this. It should not be that complex. So I then asked Audit to come and support us. I needed people. Audit has got great people. So we partner up, and we kind of deep dive into all of this and try to understand what is leading all these questions on payments, and find 30 actions that we should take in that field.
Wow.
And basically what we did is that then we took it back to the finance department, and you say, did you know that XYZ is leading to that much cost? It's leading to that many contacts. And we just say, let's partner, let's try to find a solution. And actually their feedback was, well, it's great that for once it's not a blaming game, but it's more, let's actually try to fix it together. And it takes a while to get there, but after 1 year, we halved the number of contact on payment. So just actioning on all these little things with the right department can make extreme benefits to our operation.
And I love that phrase, whispers in the corridor. Every business has got those whispers in the corridor, and actually we can demonstrate some value behind those whispers in the corridor. Amy, let's talk about Simply Health. Where are you on your journey towards using contact center insights strategically? Where are you on that mature curve?
Hi everyone. So at Simply Health, we kind of have a purpose to improve kind of access to healthcare for all in the UK. And to be able to do that, we need to, we want to be delivering to kind of 5-10 million customers. We're at about 2.5 at the moment. So we absolutely need to be able to scale and scale profitably. And one of the main things we've been on a kind of continue to be on a big transformational journey, really. And one thing is kind of deploying AI technology to kind of better our experiences alongside that kind of human expertise. And we've had some really good results so far, but how do we get really great results? And that's the kind of next step, and what we're kind of looking for with, our journey with EdgeTier, who we're quite early on with. And, we're getting lots of data. We talked about it already, kind of very data rich, but very insight poor. And that's certainly something that we're looking to kind of get more into, so that we can focus on our root cause. How do we better those AI experiences to be a bit more bespoke to customers, but also how do we influence our kind of product teams to create journeys that are kind of fixing these root causes, so that we don't get the contact in the first place. So that's been quite key, and we're having to calm some of the excitement, I think, in the business now. We're starting to get a bit more access to it, which is great.
And that is exciting. The fact that you're starting to kind of peel back the onion, and you're starting to see actually what's there. And for those that are listening, where did you start? Obviously, you just on this early journey of using EdgeTier, but before that, where did you start in terms of making those step changes to being able to use that data better?
Well, it's kind of about the kind of clarity in that data. So we've kind of had like we said, very data rich, and creating business cases for change kind of ended up being very the integrity in the data, you'd have to caveat it a lot, and I think that's what really influenced us to want to kind of go with a more conversational insight tool, so that we could really bring that customer voice to life and bring them more onto the table and have more impact in those conversations with some of our colleagues around the business. We've had pockets of it, but it's very labor intensive. So being able to actually bring this is a bit more powerful, and we hope that will kind of help to build trust in that data. If we can have confidence in it, then everyone else can have confidence in it. That will kind of shine through. And we hope that will kind of strengthen the collaboration with those areas, so that we can have that customer at the forefront. We are product led, customer led. We really want to be influencing those journeys, really. Which
makes total sense. And I guess, as we've seen through some of the polls, the problem is that not everyone can get access to the insights, or if they can get that data, it can take time. It takes people off the phones. It takes people out of what they might otherwise be doing, or you're paying people to do this level of insight. And I know that you can obviously be investing in technology, but it's not just about the technology. Tracy, what else are organizations doing if they don't have the tech and can't get that investment? How else can they get access to the insights once they've got the data?
I think for me, with that kind of thing, it is really good to start small. So, if you are having to do things kind of manually, or you are having to do them in perhaps a slightly different way than you'd want to, if you had, some great AI tools or any other tools for that matter. So for me, that's where you need to look at something that's a pain point in your business, something maybe that your leadership or your board are really focused on, and show, start there and show the value that the data that you've got that can support, maybe solving that particular issue that's keeping them up at night, or that thing that's, a strategic kind of imperative for that, that year, etc. The other thing I would say as well, and we've done this quite a lot in Estee Lauder, is it's often possible to get free pilots from vendors. So, there's a lot of vendors out there in that kind of AI space that are really keen to prove the kind of effectiveness of their tools, etc. Particularly, obviously, it's a kind of win-win for both to be able to prove that the tools work and to get that insight. So, maybe use some of those opportunities. But I think the key thing for me is to focus on a specific issue and the insight that technology can bring, rather than, that kind of whole sort of wider piece. And then I think that really will help you to build a business case for why it's important to have, the investment, whether it's the investment in people or the investment in the technology.
I love that. It is pick that thing that the C-suite care about. So although there might be something else that you can see the data and insights of what you can get to is telling you, but actually if you can make it really resonate with the senior leaders that have got the purse strings, then that's how you start to unlock what's possible. That's interesting. And Quentin, you had to go through the process of building a business case to invest in the tech that you have. How did you do that? How did you prove that you can deliver a strong ROI if you invest in getting tech that can really pull out those insights and analytics?
Well, I think step one that we did is that we actually did it manually, because we wanted to prove the point that actually we could improve. So it was a huge effort from everyone to actually pull all of this together. But we were convinced that at some point we could get there with technology, but we had to prove the point around continuous improvement, around, customer service. And it's a bit of a Jehovah's Witness thing. You've got to believe, first a bit that it's possible to change. But we started on this journey, and really the crucial step was that we started delivering on those savings. And we the example on payment, but on plenty of examples, we actually started to action and see less contact coming in. Still a lot of effort to get the insight, but at least we could see that we were going in the right direction. And I think what changed is the moment we started collaborating with other departments, like our aviation department, where they wanted to replace the check-in system. They had 5. And we say, well, if you do this, and if you want to change your procedures and process and stuff, here are a list of issues that we see, and it's costing us X amount of money in customer service. So if you action, then indirectly, it will have an impact on customer service. And there we started we start to see a different conversation with the business. And I think finally that's where it then helped us a few months ago when we decided to go for this investment, to have a proper tool to say, we've saved in 2 years, we've saved X million, and we only scratched the surface because we all did it manually and a bit on the back of what we do already. So let's industrialize things. Let's get to a situation where we can give access to everyone in the business to this data, and allow things to happen without customer service pushing for it. And I think that's really what resonated within the business.
That makes sense. And Quentin, I'm going to put a question to you that is come into the chat. And I know there's another question in the chat that Bart is going to come to in a moment. But someone's really interested in whether you are ahead of the curve from an AI governance perspective. Do you feel like you're ahead of the curve, Quentin, on governance?
Well, I will say that we've been using AI actively in the operation in customer service for, let's say, 8-9 months, and that means in the operation. So I don't know if we are ahead of the curve, but at least I know that we're seeing some proper usage. And typically on contact reason, that's one that it was a very manual task. It was taking 30 seconds of the time to our agent. It is now not a task anymore. So AI can have a very direct impact for our staff on knowledge and all this kind of thing, but it can also do things in the back to remove certain tasks from our agents. And that's really where we're seeing great results since, I would say, 8-9 months here.
Interesting. And as well as not having the technology, we saw earlier that there are other barriers to using the insights to make change. And one of those barriers that we hear often that we hear members talk about often is cultural. And Tracy, you alluded to it a little bit earlier. But is this something that you're acutely aware of from your time to talking to lots of different companies? Do you see that there are some that are desperate to get the tech in place so that they can make that difference, while there are others that are really nervous about what they might uncover?
Sometimes there can be, yeah. I mean, I think, and I think, both Tracy and Quentin mentioned really pragmatic approaches to kind of starting here, right? So there's no point in saying, okay, well, let's go from 0 to 100 in 1 week, right? You have to start with something that demonstrates it. And to pick an example, we were working with a client recently where they had just rolled out some policy changes, and they were trying to understand like whether they should roll it out in Europe or not. So they rolled out this change to their refund process in the US, and they were trying to figure out, should they roll this out in Europe or not? And this is around the time we were kind of talking about whether they could invest or in kind of technology to solve some of these problems that they were having. And so we said let's frame it around that then. Let's use the data that we have so that you can tell the rest of the business whether you should roll out this policy change in Europe or not, with full knowledge of what the impact will be to both customer experience, the impact will be on the contact center itself, right, in terms of volumes, but also in terms of what customers will think and whether they will be so annoyed about this policy change that they'll move away or not, right? So framing a proof of concept or a trial around those kind of things, company-wide problems rather than, let's say, support problems, really kind of help you just kind of demonstrate that value very quickly. There's other ways as well. I know, like, ROI is always something that's kind of top of mind. You can usually do something around that. So, like, I think Quentin mentioned things like automatic like topic analysis, so that you not relying on your team to kind of annotate conversations. To me, that's not the prize, right? The prize is the insight, the prize is the business change. But if you need to demonstrate an ROI to get a business case through that will enable you to do that very easily, right? So you sometimes have to kind of demonstrate an ROI just to get in the door. But then once you're showing those insights, then it's just because of, okay, well, of course we should use this, of course we should have it.
Thank you, Bart. And did you want to quickly just answer the question that is in the chat? It's a little bit more around the contact center itself, but do you see the benefits in combining key operational data such as AHT, SA, etc., with financial and qualitative data such as retention, new orders, CSAT?
Yeah. So absolutely. And the kind of dream state here is that you have the kind of AI, which is explaining like what people are saying and why they're saying it. And then you combine that with like metric type data to understand what's causing long and short conversations and what's causing volume, with like kind of internal data about the customer, like what kind of customer level they are, what products they've bought, all of those kind of things. Once you can combine all those three things together, then you can start to really drive insights. And I think both Tracy and Quentin both mentioned examples where you're then using data to impact product decisions. You're then looking at all of the hotels that you have in your portfolio and saying, okay, people love this hotel and here's why they love this hotel. Let's push that initiative out to other hotels and vice versa. So when you can combine those data, then you can start to really drive a lot of improvements.
Thank you, Bart. And Tracy, I mean, not every contact center or organization is going to be prepared for what AI-powered analytics engines can actually deliver. How do you overcome that if you're a contact center leader trying to give your operation a voice in the boardroom?
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of what Bart said definitely resonates here. And I think it probably comes back to what I was saying earlier about, start small, focus on what's important, to your audience. But also I think it's, you know, to Quentin's point, it is a lot about, you know, the financial aspect of it. So, you know, whether that is kind of, you know, a hidden cost, an opportunity cost, you know, something like loss of loyalty, to Bart's point, you can generally put some kind of, you know, pound or dollar amount around some of the insight that you're seeing. And I think for me, you know, when you start talking in that way, it, you know, very quickly helps you to, you know, get that insight kind of heard and listened to. So yeah, that would be my recommendation, is focus on the cost / opportunity element of what you've got there in the data. And I think then culturally that really helps people to focus.
And I guess there's also an element of the cost of dissatisfaction. So it's easy to look at, you know, this is what's possible, this is where we could save money and so forth. But actually, there's a cost of getting stuff wrong, and the insights can support that as well, can't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that, you know, the loss of loyalty piece, you know, and the, you know, that this number of customers have basically said, we're never going to shop with you again, or, you know, we love that product, but we're so, you know, frustrated with the processes, etc., that, you know, we're going to go somewhere else. And I think it, as I say, it's relatively, I think, even at a high level, possible to put kind of numbers around that. If you, even if you make an assumption and you say, you know, we have this many customers and they spend this much money with us, and, you know, only a 1% dissatisfaction equates to this much money, but you could potentially extrapolate that up and up and up, depending on, you know, what some of those pain points or some of the insight shares is, you know, is hugely powerful.
And I think one of the things you said when we were talking earlier was be careful what you wish for. So now that your voice is now heard in your organization, what does that look and feel like now? How is the rest of the business now knocking on your door, and what are the kind of things that they're asking for?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I think if I kind of go back to maybe when we sort of started with some of our insight, we would probably go into, you know, senior leadership meetings with a kind of big wish list or a big list of pain points, and, you know, everybody would always be very, very interested, but, you know, to some of the points we were talking about earlier, you didn't necessarily get the traction. I think we saw that perhaps on some of the poll results as well. You didn't get the traction, but that's probably because you went with this massive list. And actually, you know, what's so important there is to, you know, focus on a specific area that you know that you can influence, that you know you've got really robust data, to Amy's point, that, you know, it is truthful and has that kind of validity attached to it. And that you can get that maximum value from. And then I think, you know, it kind of naturally comes from there that people do actually just start to ask, well, actually, what do our customers think about that, whether it's a product or a service, or, you know, as some of the guys were saying earlier, you know, you introduce something new, you know, can we put some kind of tolerances around what we would expect with regards to contact volumes in respect of those things. So, you know, we actually get asked for anything and everything that you could think of now, you know, everything from, you know, what was the response to a particular, you know, new product, for example, to, you know, what do people think about the different carriers that we use, you know, to, you know, department stores and things like that we might sell our products through. So, you know, it really, really does vary. But yeah, I think, as you said, be careful what you wish for, because I think once people do start to realize the value of some of the data that you've got, you could be inundated, which then does come back to how you know, make sure you're able to share that information.
Well, one of the things that we talk a lot about in terms of what tech can do, I know it can create greater efficiencies, give you access to more data and insights, all lovely stuff, but actually they can create jobs, and it's that a change in role type scenario that I think that can come along. So Amy, from your perspective, I mean, you have access to all this data. One of the things that we've talked about, and we talked about it before we went live, was having that customer seat in the boardroom. Do you, and it sounds like, Tracy, you may well have gone beyond that, in that actually the boardroom is already, the customer insights is already well and truly embedded in the boardroom. Amy, from your perspective, that seat at the boardroom table, is that something that you're feeding as well? That's that customer sat at the boardroom?
Yeah, and we hope to have kind of even more influence here. We've even played customer calls in the boardroom to the exec group, etc. So and that you can only have so much with that. It is very impactful to do, but when you can add volume on top of that, and all these customers are feeling the same, and kind of broaden that out, I think it starts to really influence some of the things that we want to do. And being able to, I think we've touched on it as well, being able to kind of measure that impact of the things that we're doing, and then kind of feed that information back in, and hopefully then kind of like influence over what we do going forward, and really make that customer led.
And so, just leaning back into some of the stuff that you've done in recent months, how are you influencing what the board does? Have you got examples of where you've really influenced that change?
I think it's kind of coming back to some of the kind of AI tools that we've delivered, really, and the kind of ROI that we've got off the back of those, and how successful they've been. It helps to kind of build that trust that deploying AI solutions can have good customer outcomes as well, because we can evidence those. That reflects really well in our really low complaint volumes that we have, our CSAT scores. By putting in these tools, we're not seeing a big uproar, the opposite, if anything. So we're able to kind of pull that all to the table, and then get more buy-in for more, really. And that's certainly something we've seen with what we've done on our telephony platform, and in our Salesforce platform as well.
And that's so important, is the fact that so we know that a lot of contact centers are looking to reduce the number of calls into the contact center, the number of interactions, by understanding the root cause analysis and then making change elsewhere. And is that how one of the ways that you're measuring that investment in the analytics type software? Is it through, actually, we're able to change the makeup of those calls coming into the contact center?
Absolutely. Yeah, we want to support customers that need to stay in certain channels, how optimize those so they are better for them. We're going to have more kind of customers that aren't able to kind of digitally move with us onto our kind of online platforms. We're going to have to service them in those channels, and we need that information and that insight to do that in the right way. It's quite a sensitive thing to do, so we need to be quite careful with some of those journeys. So yeah, it's really kind of harnessing that information to influence how we do that.
And I'm going to ask you, what are you seeing so far in terms of how you're able to deliver the right channel to the right customers? How are you? Have you got examples of how you are doing that in the contact center?
Yes, so we've got really started to bespoke some of the journeys in some of the telephone channel in the AI. One in particular is around our digitally vulnerable customers. So we kind of really recognise, putting in this kind of solution, that it's not right for everybody. Not everybody wants to kind of be navigated online, or have even access to do things online. So we've kind of started in certain journeys to really harness being able to use our Salesforce platform to give them information, automate some things for them within that channel, so they don't have to try and navigate something else. They can do everything they need just in that channel, and that's their channel of preference. So it makes us more efficient still, because we're not necessarily having to hand over to an agent, but we are able to service that customer in a way that they want.
Fascinating. So what's next, Amy? And aside from driving change, obviously, through the business, are you using the insights in any other way, or do you plan on using them in any other way going forward?
Yeah, so one thing, obviously, for our kind of quality assurance, we want to make sure we're kind of harnessing those conversational insights to kind of navigate that. But one thing I'm really keen on is around supporting our frontline staff. So we can think about the customer a lot, absolutely, but really our users and our advisors that speak to our customers every day, we can use this and insights to kind of better their experience, and also the level of and quality of support that they get. So I'm actually most excited about that, being able to kind of really support them, because if I can look after them, they'll look after the customers, really. So yeah.
And that for me is another massive thing that here in the contact center we're doing in terms of demonstrating our strategic value. I talked about it right at the top of the call around the fact that we have an incredibly diverse workforce. what we're really good at is looking after our people and having the insights to be able to do that even better. I think the rest of the organizations can really learn from that. So I love the fact that that's one of the ways that you're looking at using the data. And Quentin, what advice would you give to our listeners who are trying to get that voice in the contact center, of the contact center really heard in the boardroom? What advice would you give?
Maybe before I answer this, to also bit on what Amy just said, coming from an ex-agent, or at least when I was a student, I did a bit of work in customer service. Receiving feedback on just a few calls a month that someone external or someone in another team has listened to is very, very poor. And at TUI at the moment, this is what we do. We listen to 2 to 4 calls a month per agent and give them feedback. Out of maybe 300 or 400 that they manage every month. This is very, very poor in terms of insight, in terms of just quality of the feedback that you can give. And so I'm really excited to now that we start this journey about how can we completely automate quality and then really steer then where do we need training, where do our agent do well, where do our agent do not well. So like this, we can have a personalization of our training rather than just saying, oh, you did these 2 calls and it was really poor. We see you next month. That's just not the way to do it. But if I go back to your question, I think we talked a lot about it, but don't assume that people know. People in the rest of the business don't know what's happening in customer service, so we've got to take that insight to them. We need to put a money sign on things. We're very good at reporting number of contacts in HD. Adding a money sign to it is just a mathematical operation. So that will change people's mind. And then the last thing is we've got to stay extremely close to our agent. So our agent, our team leads, they're a source of information that is almost infinite, and they can steer where we should be focusing on, what can we fix to actually drive the biggest value always come from what our agents say, so it can point us in the right direction. And I think maybe some food for thought for the audience. I really like what Amy, you said about listening to calls in the boardroom. That always have a big impact. One of the way I did it a few months ago at the IT conference, I wanted to showcase to them what 30-second time saving in HD is. So in front of 3,000 people, I stood up when the speaker gave me the go. I literally just stood up for 30 seconds, didn't say a word. And it was a very painful experience, very awkward, but it really, I think, helped people to understand that 30 seconds can be a lot of time. So if we can save that on every call, it is a lot. Time, millions of contacts, that's a huge value to the business. And that helps sometimes to resonate towards teams that are not customer facing.
And that point of actually putting pounds and pence to it, Quentin, what impact did that have when you made that switch, when you started to go, hang about, I need to put proper value on what this change actually means? How did you see things change for you at TUI?
I would just say that I think it's just you get listened to because this is certain cost. So, the moment you start putting a value sign against it, this is literally money that we are spending every single day. So against the case where we say, oh, we may sell more or we're going to do a marketing thing. Well, yeah, it is wishful thinking, but customer service is things that we spend today. So it is literally cost that if we action from tomorrow onwards, we can actually drive this down or at least offset the growth. And so the attention is a little bit different.
So Tracy, is that the case for you as well? Is it in your boardroom money talks?
Yes, definitely.
And Quentin, I mean, sorry, not Quentin, but you're going to be talking to, as we said right at the top of the call, you're talking to contact center leaders all the time. They're always looking for, I've got to really demonstrate an ROI on this, especially with what we've got coming up in 2025. And, there's some real squeezes on costs. We're trying to be more efficient. We're trying to be more productive. We're trying to do things differently, better. But this is an investment to get to your data, get to your insights, whether that is about people doing that for you, whether it's about tech. Do you find that actually it's the money that talks? That is how you get that ROI?
Typically, yes. And I think, one of the really nice things from the surveys and from the comments say, like, it's great to see such appetite to use data. I think everyone is kind of on the same page as it needs to be done. And one thing that like is very possible is it's completely fine and very, very possible to start small. It doesn't have to be a 4-month deployment or 2 month deployment. It can be something that gets set up very quickly. And like if in that situation where you feel you maybe need to drive a bit of that cultural shift, or you need to do something to maybe jumpstart the rest of the business, it's fine to start with a very small, focused kind of project where it could be something like Quentin mentioned, where you kind of look at, for example, quality and say, okay, let's really get an assessment of where we are with quality. Or it could be something that's aligned to the broader business goals, where it's like, let's pick this off, let's use this as a way to kind of demonstrate the value. And once you've done that, then then everything else just kind of falls into place. Like one thing that we've done quite a lot is where we can go into an organization and say, look, we'll turn our AI on, and it will show you all the issues that you have had in the last 2 months. And it will retrospectively look back and highlight all the things that have happened and all the issues and all the, oh, I do remember that day when we had issue X and our payment gateway went down, but we only found out about it the next morning. It'll highlight those things. And then all of a sudden you're in a very kind of good place to be able to say, okay, look, if we had this live, imagine what we could do, right? So starting small is very possible. It doesn't have to be a 6-month deployment. It doesn't have to be anything long. It can be something you turn on in a week and show results very, very quickly. So that's the kind of main thing. And once you have that done, then the business case kind of looks after itself.
So, Bart, what does the future look like in terms of what's actually possible?
So I think we're kind of at the early stages of adoption of AI. I think a lot of the technology has advanced quite significantly, but we're still at the early stages. The goal, and really the goal, is complete transparency into everything. So, we won't be happy until the CEO really has that view of everything that's going on, and it's as if they have listened to every single call. But you're seeing the benefits, or you're seeing the kind of abilities, already, about being able to just ask questions of conversations, being able to just query, like, tell me this, and in a very kind of unstructured way, the AI will figure that out and then give you a very kind of not just an answer, but an answer with quantification of size, of impact, of how frustrated people were, who the most frustrated person was, all of those kind of things. That's very, very possible and very achievable.
Joe, I love that, having that North Star, that goal of total transparency. And what is possible when you know what's going on is incredible. Guys, I want to say a huge thank you for joining me and being on our panel today. To Tracy at Estee Lauder, to Amy at Simply Health, and to Quentin at TUI, and to Bart at EdgeTier. Thank you so much for joining us, sharing all those insights. We're going to be talking more about raising the strategic value of the contact center in the boardroom over the coming months. So please do listen in again. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.